Cam here from the fishroom.co.nz. We've done it. We've made it to Friday. How good. Before we kick off too much, John is not currently with us. He is helping his daughter move house. He said he might manage to be able to be here about half an hour after we've started, so fingers crossed it happens. If not, apologies, John is not here. It's just me and our guest, who we'll bring up now. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. Or afternoon, depending on where you are.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being with us. It's greatly appreciated. I'm quite looking forward to this, to be fair. Can you please basically tell people who you are and what it is that you do?
Oh, my name's Larry Johnson. I've been keeping fish since I was 9 years old. So I've been doing this a long time. I've been keeping African cichlids, specifically Malawi, for probably about 30 years now, maybe more. And I enjoy it. I got a fairly large fish room. I used to import from Malawi. I go over there yearly to run a dive safari. I'll be heading there on the 27th of this month to meet up with a previous show member there, Pete Barnes. Him and I've been going there, I don't know. He's met me there, 4 or 5, maybe 6 times now. So, yes, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Cool, fantastic. So how did you first become interested in cichlids, and what sort of specifically drew you to Malawi cichlids?
Well, back, in the early 70s, I first see my first African cichlids. I realized that they were aggressive, and they were also fairly colorful, and they were larger. So I was moving my way into larger tanks. You need large fish in large tanks, and the rest is kind of history. I caught right on to that. And my water here, I'm on well water, so I tend to keep things that will tolerate harder water, and the rest is history. I mean, do I like discus? Yes. But my water's not suited to that.
It's funny, I do a day in the life video, and earlier this week I asked people what their best advice they've had for keeping fishes, and one of the comments was keep fish that are suitable for your water. So there's no point in having ridiculously hard, high pH water and trying to keep discus if it's not going to work. Just doesn't make sense. So it's interesting that you brought that up. Well,
the lake, that was always thinking, you got to keep African cichlids in hard water, blah, blah, blah. They're pretty easy on their water perimeters. My water here is actually, the hardness is twice that of Lake Malawi. And everybody says hard water. And I back in the day when Stuart was still alive, I said, how hard is the water here, Stuart? And he says, well, it's, and then he changed. He says, it runs about 225 to 250 microsiemens. And my microsiemens here in my tanks runs at about 800. So, and our city water runs about 450. So they do find in this water. So, maybe if you're in an area where the water's a little bit softer, or you collect rainwater. I have a friend that he has a cistern. He collects rainwater off his roof into a cistern. He's got to add a little bit of stuff to his water. That's all. But it's basically you got to try to stay consistent, and that's it's a bit of trial and error. If you're not consistent, then you're going to run into some problems. That's all I can say.
So you're a fan of making sure everything is basically staying even throughout, as opposed to jumping up and down, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, fluctuations aren't good for fish. You might even shock your fish. Certainly when I was bringing in fish from Africa, they've been in the bag a long time. The pH is getting very low, and you have to acclimatize them to that to bring the pH back up. I've dropped fish in the tank here maybe a little bit quick because they were They didn't look like they were going to make it, and some fish go into shock. And man, they just zoom right across the tank, and it'll kill themselves by running in the end of the tank. So, something like that, I tend to take them back out and put them in a large plastic bag and add some ammo lock, and to set that bag down on the chair or whatever for another half an hour, so let them get acclimatized.
We've had a question from the watchers. Rebecca would like to know, have you ever kept any other Rift Valley catfishes or other cynodontists?
Actually, the Cichlids, that's an interesting catfish. I just seen them, I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe 10 years ago in the Stuart Grant Fish House. And a little young lad, he goes over and he picks up the shells and he dumps the water out over a bag, and he was catching them like that. I've never brought them in, but the fish that I've seen in the fish house, they were in really bad shape. You know, I would like to bring them in, but they were just plastered in it. So I don't know if that was a problem with this fish or whatever. But I've kept Cynodontis. I've brought in Cynodontis nasi from Lake Malawi, and I brought in. I haven't brought in any fish from Tanganyika, but I've certainly had the multis here, and they were cool. But I mean, they never bred for me. I didn't have them in with a proper fish, I guess. The trick to breeding the multis was having them in a tank where the main fish in the tank take a long time to breed. They take, they're laying their eggs, but they'll go on and on and on and breeding for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then the multis would go through and eat some eggs and drop some eggs. And I have a few friends up here that breed them as well. So I don't know. Cool fish to have in a tank. Great for cleanup if you tend to have food hits the bottom a little bit too much or more than it should. Great for a cleanup crew. And they're fast and they're squirrely fish. But yeah, I mean, I like them. I'm just not into them that much.
Yeah. I've got a group of Petricola in the shop right beside the counter, and the amount of people that go, "Wow, what are those things?" because they're so active is incredible. So,
yeah, and they're really not that hard to breed. I think once people figured it out, that's history now. A lot of the fish like that around here. There's a lot of breeders that are supplying the shop, so you're getting some homegrown fish, which is always better than bringing them in from long distances.
Cool. Can you explain the difference between Malawi cichlids and other cichlids?
And other cichlids?
I'll use other cichlids loosely because it's a very big broad question.
Well, I tend to keep Malawi fish with Malawi fish. I don't mix frontosa and peacocks and stuff like that. I mean, I did it one time, but only one time when I had a nice group of Malawi peacocks. And I come down one day to see my 12-inch frontosa with a 4-inch peacock hanging out of his mouth. Everything was fine for, a year or so. And then the frontosa got too big and he was getting hungry and he took one out. So that happens with a lot of fish. Some of them, even the South American fish, some of them grow extremely large. Some of them are small and feisty as well. But I tend to keep my Malawi fish with Malawis. I want to do Tanganyikans, and I certainly have brought in some imports from Tanganyika. I keep them. I usually when I bring them in, I usually have a species tank as well. I don't mix a lot of fish, especially when they come in. But I do have a few large tanks that I got to fill up. That's part of the importing process. I put 2 or 3 Mbunas species in a 135-gallon tank. But I prefer to keep the fish with their own. Even the Malawi fish sometimes, if you have the Mbunas with peacocks or a little bit more mellow fish, that can be a problem as well. What I find when I'm diving in the lake is if you're coming down from shore and it's rocky, the more aggressive fish are closer to the top. That's where you find your Mbunas. You find the occasional predator maybe rolling through the area hunting, but usually the more aggressive fish are in shallower water.
That's interesting. Why do you know why, or do you have a theory on why that is?
I know that's what I've always found. The more aggressive fish are up closer to the surface along the rocky edge. That's where the imbunas are grazing on the algae. You know, some of them eat algae, some of them, you know, are combing it to get the microorganisms out of the algae. And I think the aggressive fish push these non-aggressive fish down lower in the water column. I have found peacocks in as little as 10 or 12 feet of water, but there's a lack of impuna around that area. So I think the impuna pushing down around Malawi Island, you don't start seeing any of the peacocks there till you're in 60, 70 feet of water. So there's no impuna down around there. Well, there is, but not many. But certainly they're a lot smaller down there. They're the ones that aren't feeding on the algae.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. That's quite a cool dynamic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Haplochromis, are they kind of in and around the same areas with the peacocks? Or are they further deep down again?
They vary bits. Some are at different levels. I mean, there's the predators. They can be low, or they could be low in the water, like 60, 70 feet. I'll see polystigma, and then they'll come up higher, and they'll do their hunting. Living stone, either like laid in the sand as an ambush predator. Same with linai. They'll get in around the rocks. They don't necessarily stay deep. So there's a whole cross section, and owls, they all hunt in different ways. Some of the big cruisers, like I don't know, behind me you can't really see, but there's Champsichromis ceruleus. I've seen them offshore, 400 or 500 yards offshore in 50 feet of water, cruising up high in the water column. I don't see them down around the rocks much. But you see the little ones, or you see them around weed beds, right, when they're young.
Yeah.
The weed beds
awesome.
are a very interesting area because you get a cross section of almost everything there.
Yeah,
it's a Vallisneria weed beds. The Vallisneria there doesn't grow very tall. Most of it's tops would be 14, 15 inches, and in some areas the whole waft of weeds, the haps will dig it out, so it all comes up on an edge like that, and sometimes the impuna will get under there and they'll spawn in that little spot, and others will go in there to spawn, and then the other ones are floating in and around the weeds, and they're looking to pick off any of the fry that are dropped. The polystigma, they travel in large groups. I was diving with Conings there and just off Chemby Beach, and there was a massive polystigma group come into these grass beds, and it was terror. The fish were going all sorts of different ways, diving into the weeds, and the babies you can see them running around, and there must have been 400 of them that come in there and they just terrorize. There's a couple other fish, some Johnsoni in the group as well, and they come in, they just terrorize this little weed bed, and then they just up and travel, head to the next weed bed. That's interesting.
I was going to ask you if it's a group or not.
Yeah, well, I'd never seen polystigma do that before up until then, and back then I didn't have a GoPro. I got a GoPro that I mount on my underwater camera now, because of course when I got my camera, they didn't have video in the camera, but it sure would have been nice on that day. And let me tell you, I've missed a few things like that where I'm taking pictures, and then a school of fish like that come in, and to watch the behavior was phenomenal, but I didn't have a camera, so I just had to describe it. I'm stuck to describing it now. There's been a few instances like that. Sometimes I turn the GoPro off. By the time I get the GoPro on, the action's done. So Pete, he turns his on when he hits the bottom or he starts to photograph or whatever, and he just lets it run for the whole dive. That creates a lot of. It occupies a lot of space. I mean, you have to go through that, edit that, get rid of that old footage, and just use your edits, or else it doesn't take too long to fill up a laptop. Even this laptop I got, my new one's got a gig, and my old one had a gig, and my old one started slowing down too much, so I got a new one. So I think total probably, even with my videos, I probably got over 300 gigs of pictures and video. It doesn't take long to add up.
No. John has made it, so we'll bring John up as well.
Hey, John.
Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah,
it's all right. It happens. It happens.
Yeah,
Cool.
But it's 3 different time zones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always mind-blowing. Rebecca has asked another question. She's curious, have you ever seen Platychromis penochilis with the star sapphire variant in the wild? As she was told they aren't seen with that color there by someone who has visited many times.
That the star sapphire one, it comes from Tanzania, and I haven't dove into Tanzania yet. I've observed Phenochylis in the wild, the white lips and the gissel, but not the star sapphire. We don't get up to Tanzania. We were up close to Tanzania. We can certainly see it when we go around Lakoma Island. There's Mozambique, and then there's Tanzania. But it's funny. It's you just can't go across in some of these waters. You never know if you're going to get stopped by the police, and they just don't stop you. Like, they'll actually throw you in jail. You lose a couple of days of your time before you get out and pay a fine or whatever. So it's not worth it. I mean, even back in the day, you're going into Tanzania. So unbelievable. They want, you got all this camera gear. You must be professionals. They want a lot of money to do that.
Yeah.
No, he's a funny guy. No, we're not paying that. A lot of it, they're just trying to scam you all the time. So,
what are some common misconceptions around Malawi cichlids that you have encountered?
I don't think we got a pretty decent Malawi cichlid community up where I am here in Canada, and I don't know. I don't run into too many misconceptions, but if I do, I straighten them out. The overcrowd your tank. Yeah, sure, you can overcrowd a tank, but the flip side is how much maintenance do you want to do? If you got a tank that's really well overstocked, which I tend to do with Mbuna species, and then you got to maybe look after it a little more, especially if you're feeding them good. If you don't feed them good, then you get a couple of deaths, and it's usually from lack of food. But yeah, I mean, you got to feed them well, and if you feed on one hand, you got to even it out by water changes. There's that equilibrium. But somebody tells me they only do 25% water change a week on a overcrowded community tank of African cichlids. Yeah, that's not good enough. You need to do more.
There, Cam? Oh, it looks like Cam's frozen up there. But one of the next questions that we were looking at is if you have kind of come across any interesting facts about the natural habitat itself that you weren't aware of before you went diving there. So was there anything that you discovered when you were there the first time?
I mean, the fishermen are cleaning the fish out. And I think eventually, probably beyond my lifetime, it's going to be a bit of an ecological disaster. They just don't seem to get it over there. Even some of the exporters, usually they come across from the Tanzania side and they come in, they're collecting around like Lakoma Island, where we dove there. Used to be thousands of fish. It was a phenomenal dive. But you know, they cleaned out it pretty well cleaned out all the several species at that location. One year I went, I'm looking around for I forget what they call it now, the old king sizey, and I go like I take video. And usually, you know, you would see 8 or 10 or 12, 15. They're kind of fighting for territory in an area where you're trying to film. And I got one male doing the dance. I got one male in the background. I go, you know, these guys are in there collecting. They don't care. They just want to collect it all. Same thing with Taiwan Reef. It was somebody shipper from Tanzania go in there, try to clean it out. Always going to capitalize on taking all of the Solosi off that reef, which I think is pretty well impossible to do. But if you keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it before the fish can breathe, then you got a problem. I was out the Taiwan Reef in 2022, and I got to say that the Solosi are doing really well there. It's back to where it was, you know, 15 years ago when I was there too. I guess a nice shot around the boat anchor with about 200 Solosi in it back in 2005. And then Ad said to me, you know, on one of the trips, you know how many Solosi are there? And I didn't count many. I never really noticed that before. So I ordered in Solosi for the last time since they had them in stock. Then they stopped taking them out of there. And then we went for 5 years. We restocked that reef every time I went. I told them to go, hey, we're going to do this at Taiwan Reef. And I had a couple of, we're going to do what? You know, like, do we want to waste their time doing that? Hey, we're going to dive on the reef. You take a couple of bags of fish down with you. It's not a big deal, you know. So, yeah, this wasn't too bad. They thought they thought they were going to be working on their holidays, but it all worked out well. We planted them there. I went the first year with Ad and see what they were doing and how they were doing it, and that was all great. He says, do you want to take a bag down? I said, no, I want to take pictures because this is the first time we're doing this. So I did the pictures, and some of the guys did video and what have you. And then, you know, I've been down a couple more times, and Pete Barnes, he took some pretty decent video and edited it together. And the last time I was there, I took video here, I took video there, and I was like, well, what's it look like? And I said, well, this is what it looks like just about everywhere, just one video. And I got 25 or 30, 40 fish in the one shot. This is what it's like almost everywhere in this location. So as long as they leave them alone, they'll be there for a long time. But if they don't, they don't. And the other problem over there is the water clarity in the south end and too much fertilizer runoff. When you get into up here in Canada, I mean, you can't, if you got a company that's taking out the forest, they can't remove any trees within like 200 meters of water. So you have that, and that just doesn't happen over there. They'll farm and fertilize right up to the water's edge, wherever they can grow crops. They'll do that. They haven't figured it out. Like conservation and looking after the waters. It's unheard of over there. They're just starting to figure it out now a bit. But
Brenton brought up a point or a question that at one point didn't the locals stock the lakes with game fish for catching and eating?
No.
Is that correct as well?
No. I forget what the new name for tilapia is, but there's rendalai, which is chambo over there. That's the order at the restaurant. There is some farms that are farming chambo that are going to go back into the lake. Other than that, there's no restocking of anything over there. I mean, we did that with Solosi. I guess the Stuart Grant divers caught a bunch and used them for breeders at the Stuart Grant farm, and they'd never ever raised fish before, so they had problems for the first couple of years. And then they got in the groove, and every year we went to put back more and more and more. I think the last year we put 500 or 700 fish back on the reef. It was a massive fish. So, yeah, it was a good go. And now it seems to have worked, you know. But, you know, we're putting the fish on, and there were still a couple of groups that went in there and took some fish off. So were you really getting wild caught fish? Oh yeah, I guess kind of. But if they're catching the fish that we put back, they're not really wild caught. But I mean, if you got wild stock at the farm and they're breeding and you're putting those fish back, I guess it's just next best. But
yeah, it's better that than nothing at all coming off the reef. So
yeah, I don't know. And the thing is, Taiwan Reef's not in Malawi. That's actually in Mozambique. Back a long time ago when they're having their civil war and what have you over there, Malawi retained Lakoma and Chizamulo Island, and 10 kilometers offshore all the way around those islands, and Taiwan Reef's 14 kilometers from the island. But they don't patrol it and keep people out of there. Just the Malawians figure it's in Lake Malawi, it's theirs, and there's nobody over there telling them any different. And it probably wouldn't matter anyways. Yeah.
Can you tell the difference in behavior or color or anything if you're seeing a full-on natural born in the wild fish to one that has been brought into the lake environment? Is there a difference there in the water?
Yeah. What happens is, a lot of these guys at fish clubs, they have the auctions and they have fry that they're selling from a male and female that were probably brother and sister. So you sell that, and the next guy he raises them up, and he breeds brother to sister, and it goes down the line for a lot of. You got to add fresh blood in every once in a while. What I find is the fins on some of the fish, they start to round out. Say on a red empress, the lobes on the fish aren't nice and crisp. On some of the peacock, I see that they're not crisp. They're not in the wild. They're more pointed, and in tank race stuff, generation 101, they start to go a little bit lobed on the corners sometimes. So, and other things are like in some of the peacocks, instead of having 6 or 8 or 10 vertical bars, they got like 12 or 14, and I've had wild fish here where I've raised young ones and I've got a lot of vertical bars in them, but that's not the ones I use to reproduce, like that I'm going to grow out and use for my breeders. It looks okay. I mean, most people don't care. They just want color, right? Some people just want color. But when I'm picking my breeders, I pick the ones with the nice crisp fins and try to get a male back in there. I got 2 or 3 different groups of fish. Oh, like one example is I brought in on one of my last orders. I brought in the Batachromis Gertzai, and I grown up. And of course, guys come in. Oh, I want that colored male. Well, the fish are breeding the dominant male. He's breeding all the girls, right? Then he gets sold, and then the next batch, they're from a different male and then a different male, and I sell off the nice males, right? So my diversity here in the fish room, my fish room, is pretty good. The stock will stay pretty good for quite a while. Even when I breed them, I take this spawn and I pick the males and I take the females out of a different spawn, and I do that all the time. And there might be 3 or 4 females and 3 or 4 different other females that come from different fathers. So I try to do that all the time if I can. I'm still maintaining a nice group of Otter Point Jacob Freiberg guy here that are really super nice, and I do the same thing with them. I get several spawns from several different females, and then I replace the male and get some from him and do it that way. And my line's staying great so far, so good. The old boy, my old breeder here, he just, I don't know, 5 years old. Suddenly one day he's got a bad eye, banged on the filter or banged into somebody, or happens. But one-eye breeders are sometimes better. They only see the girls half the time, so they just have a chance to kill them. Well, people they tell you, oh, this peacock or that peacock, oh, they're really nasty. They get to a certain age and kill the females, and yes, they do. If you leave a male in with like 6 or 8 females, yeah, he'll pick off one and then you pick off another one and keep going down the line till he's the only male in the tank. The trick is to put some small Hepatochromis in there with him to keep him busy, to keep something between him and all the girls. And that's what I've done here, and I had great success doing that as well. You know, on lemon jakes and the outer point jakes. So,
do you find
you're
that using other fish works well with other species as well?
Sorry, go.
Do you find using the dither fish like that works with other species as well?
Yeah, it does. You know, if of course, if you want to breed them true, you know, you just keep one species of peacock in the tank. But you can have other fish in the tank too. And if you want them to breed, I just add them in, you know, at the 2-inch size as they're growing out from other tanks. You know, I mean, let's face it. I mean, if I had one single species in the single tank, you'd be kind of limited, you know. But in the number of fish that you're growing up, but you can put this other fish that are gross, like my Gert's eye. The colored males, you know, they're 7 or 8 inches big. It takes them a while to get to that size, so there's nothing wrong with putting them in with a group of peacocks. They're not going to crossbreed. I mean, they're not even mature. So, and that happens. You know, I got some, well, not so much this tank, but the other tanks. You know, I got 3 or 4 species in there. And right now, the common dither fish is the Gert's eye. They don't grow super fast, but they're in the tank. And everything's cool.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on crossing, like, or tank sharing Mbunas and peacocks and haps? Are you kind of in for that for one reasons or another? Or
yeah, you can do that, but you need a large tank. You know, you need to have a tank where you know you can rock out maybe one half of the tank on one side, and leave the other side open. I've seen this happen at a friend's place. He rocked the whole back of the tank, and he put in, I forget what fish, was it Borley or something. The Borley, he's swimming along the front of the tank, and every time he come by a little cave or crevice where the Mbuna were, the Mbuna would dart out and they take a swipe at the Hepatochromis. He says, "You should take half those rocks out because you watch what's happening." And he said, "Oh yeah, you're right. You know, you got to pick up in these little things." So most of the aquariums are, I don't know what it is in centimeters, but they're about 18 inches wide here. So if you put in 6 or 8 inches or 10 inches of rocks because you want to, you know, build them up a bit, they only got, the fish only got like 6 or 8 inches to swim back and forth, or the Mbuna are going to come out and attack them. So if you're going to mix them up, it's, you know, get some, you know, rock out one side of the tank, and on the other side you can maybe put a couple of big rocks where there's a nice cave where the peacocks like to get in these caves, and that's where they like to spawn most of the time, most of the fish. But, yeah.
So that would probably lead to where you were saying earlier that your more aggressive Mbunas are very closer to the shoreline. They push haps and peacocks deeper and deeper water. Be a very similar type thing, but just seen in an aquarium environment. Then,
yeah. It's so you got to give them space. You got to have a decent sized footprint of the tank, and then I would only rock out one side of the tank. Leave the area where the Mbuna can't, you know, hide, and then just come out of nowhere and you know hit the haps or peacocks. But peacocks, I say, they like that caves or whatever. You know, you just need to put, you know, one big rock in with a overhanging piece like this, and they'll swim through that. Much like I got up here in the tank. Well, which way?
Yeah,
up here and behind me.
Yeah. Do you block the backs off for those caves or leave them open?
Sorry. Oh
Do you
no,
block
they can swim right through. They can swim. Yeah, it's not blocked off.
Cool.
Yeah, because what happened is they got Mbuna, and they got one guy, he wants to stay in there, and another one, he wants to go through, and he'll probably come up to the other one that's in there, and he'll grab him on the tail, and he'll push him out. And you know, Mbunas sometimes they'll chase each other around mercilessly, and you got to have that diversion where when that fish comes out of that tube, when he turns to the left or right, he can get away from the other guy. So I like caves where they can swim right through.
Yeah.
I used to have this large rock here on similar rock, but I had a teepee because I had gravel in the tanks many moons ago, and I had that rocks on there flat, and they get in between the uprights, and they dig it out, and I'm in there once a week, so I could always put it back together, and that was great, because they come out, they turn left or right, and they can turn around and go back, and there's 3 or 4 caves there under these little teepee spots to hold up the big rock where they can swim up over top because they can get out of sight really fast. So I had good luck with that as well. And frontosa as well. When you're doing frontosa, I used to put concrete blocks in the tank. I painted them with 2 coats of Flecto plastic paint, but any of the plastic paints that are non-toxic, usually kids paint, it's non-toxic. And I give those a couple of coats, and I put them in, and then the slats are like this. And the big frontosa, he'd like to sit there. That's how he scooped by big peacock back in the day.
Yeah.
And bush predator. Yeah.
Do you find any specific requirements when feeding when you're having a mixed tank, or?
No, I was feeding. We were talking about this earlier. I was feeding extreme to everything, even right out of the bag from Africa. The next day they would get extreme. They did extremely well on that, and the reason being is that it doesn't expand. That's why I like this so much, and the fish loved it. I mean, when I put it in for the first time, they went crazy for it. It was great food. I never had a fish bloat on it. Mind you, I'm not. I think a lot of people bloat their fish because they're sitting in front of that. Oh, look at that! Oh, look at it! The fish are coming up doing this, the service, and we'll feed them, and they like to see that action. And then it's like going to a buffet. I sit back. Oh, after you're done, when you get home, you can't move. Well, fish do that too, so you got to keep the feedings light.
Yeah.
My instructions for my boy when I go away to Africa, it's like feed them 2 or 3 times a week. That's it. If you see any food hits the bottom, that's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, do you have a big following for cichlids up there? Whereabouts are you located?
Yeah, we've got quite a good a couple of groups on Facebook. African cichlids are good in the clubs as well. It was better maybe about 5 years ago. There was a huge community of African cichlids, but
Mark Bolton, he went with us the one year in 2014, and I think he had a great following over there, and then that grew beyond the borders of the UK.
Yeah, Mark Bolton. It's African cichlids that I kept when I first moved into this house. I started off with Mabuna and the yellow labs, the electric yellows.
Yeah.
They're captivating, especially when you get the right kind of light for them as well. But always surprises me that they're not more popular in local fish shops. And it annoys me when you walk into some local fish shops and they've always just got a tank of mixed Malawis.
Yeah,
that's tough. Crazy.
Yeah. It's if you're really into African cichlids, that's a bit of a nightmare because then that guy buys the fish and he gets on Facebook and he says, "Oh, what fish do I have?" And then the guys that know anything, they start, "You should know better. You don't do that." And then sometimes you get turned off, I guess. But,
I know.
I'm one for more pure fish.
Mm-hmm.
If you got them, because eventually you're not going to have them. At one point, they're not going to be able to get out of the country, or the importer's going to pass on the business or whatever. I mean, where I go is Stuart Grant Limited. They're going to be in business for a long time. The kids have taken it over. They're making things bigger and bigger. They diversified it a bit. I mean, the fish business over there is just a part of the business.
Yeah.
They get the ecotourism side, which I do. And, of course, I was importing from there. But they're going into like conference. They build a nice conference hall. So Malawi's like to get together for a conference all the time so they can sit around and eat and drink and talk. So yeah, it's kind of funny. But anyways, yeah, it's something you have to go there to understand that. But whatever.
Is that near Senga Bay?
Sorry.
Is Stuart Grant's fish farms out beside Senga Bay? Is that close to Senga Bay? Yeah, I've heard about that one.
Yeah, they got a beautiful spot there. I think it's 100 acres right on the lake, and it's a beautiful spot. Some of the workers live right on the property. I think they got about, depending on the time of the year, probably about 88 staff.
Wow.
Well, I mean, they got 3 or 4 dive teams. You got a group in Chilumba, a group in Cauda Bay, and a group of 3 groups, and there's usually 4 or 5 or 6 in those groups. So I mean, the fish business accounts for like, the 20 or 25 people that have to have the fish in the fish house, doing their maintenance, and bringing the stuff in and what have you. And then they get the groundskeepers and people doing laundry and looking after the rooms and what have you. So yeah, it's a fairly going business over there. I truly enjoy going there. When I went over the first time, I thought, I better take lots of pictures. I don't know if I'm ever going to get back. Then I skipped a year and I went back, and I've been going ever since. So, except during COVID, I was like everybody else, depressed because you couldn't go nowhere and do nothing for 2 years. So by the time I got there, it had been like 3 years since I've been there. That's a long time for me. I never missed going to Malawi that long since 1999. So
yeah, I can imagine it being a very addictive place to go, especially
if you're a the people are friendly. Nothing's a problem. At a slower pace. Hey, if I don't get it done today, I'll get it done tomorrow. If I don't get it done tomorrow, maybe next week. That's what it's like over there. Nobody's in a rush. So
over here in New Zealand, we call that living on island time.
Island time,
which is obviously something that's come from the islands. It's very much it's an island time. You do it when you do it sort of scenario.
Yeah. Over there, it's Africa wins again. AFA.
You were saying you wanted to keep fish pure, or they'll be lost. What are your thoughts on the likes of OBs and dragon bloods and stuff like that?
That's going to ruin the hobby, man. Eventually, that's all you're going to have. You're not going to have any of this stuff that's proper coloring or proper size. I've never won one for that stuff. Have I had OB peacocks here? Yeah, when they were brand new, somebody gave me some. Have I had albino peacocks here? Yes, I did, because somebody got out of the hobby, and I said, yeah, I'll take them. And I got to say, the albinos were really interesting. They were from Malawi, and the adults, they had the pink eyes and the white bodies, but the males had a little violet hue, which is very nice. People come in and say, oh, you got any young ones? Yeah. I could never grow any young ones to replace them, because every time I had young, I always sold them. So, but I'm not fussy on those. It's going to ruin the hobby. Everybody wants OB. And the problem is, when you put all OBs in the tank, you can't tell the difference. And most people couldn't tell if that was an alley strain or a peacock strain, or what come from where, I then asked Konings back in the day where he thought that the OB come from, and he says Trophiops crossed was an Mbuna crossed with a peacock, and probably from Chimamquazi Island, where we're going to dive this year. The amount of Trophiop males there that are just orange with black spots, OB. So it's incredible there. Beautiful spot to dive. Probably the last time I was there, or one other time I was there, was 2018. It was probably the best dive, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's out in the middle of the water. So by the time we boat out there from where we're going to stay, it's going to be at least 3 hours out, 3 hours back. And you're there. Maybe we'll get 2 dives there. Maybe we won't. But and it's funny, you dive one side of the island is different from the other side of the island, almost in all the islands I've ever been to. Because there's one side that's rocky, and the other side it might be sandy, or it might be rocks, or the other side might be all shelf rock. It's amazing,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've had a comment from Stephen. We're basically talking in the chat about keeping Malawi cichlids, and he said he wants his fish to play nice with plants. Are there any Malawi species that play nice with plants?
It's tough because if they don't eat them or chew them up, they'll dig them up. I've tried some jungle vallisneria in my tanks, and the zebras, they would just dig under the root system. And, like I mentioned when we were talking, vallisneria doesn't grow very big over there. It only grows 15 inches or so, give or take. And you go into the weed patches, and there's a patch there where the weeds are up, or the roots are standing on their end because fish get in there, started digging out maybe to spawn or whatever. And so how I had them in one of the tanks here. I sold them to my friend. He liked to plant a tank with Africans, and he was successful. Like the Santa Chromis Friar Eye, they seem to do okay. Probably some of the peacocks. But the Mbunas would be no. If they don't dig them up, they'll eat them. There are some haps that eat plants as well. Tinniolatus, the red empress and stuff. Some of these fish, they'll work their way right up the stem, try to get the algae off the plants. But peacocks probably be okay. Some of the haps, definitely not Mbuna.
Zena's got a wee follow up on that. Can you just leave things like Anubias free floating and allow them to rearrange the furniture as they please, or will they tear it up eventually?
Elastic band the Anubias to rocks. Anubias is like rubber. They don't seem to tear it up too much. That'd probably be one of the best recommendations I could say. If you want to put them in, you can rubber band them to rock. If you got the right color rubber bands, you can use thread and wrap it in the root channel and thread. The best way to grow Anubias is in soil, with the rhizome is above and the roots are down below. I've grown Anubias here, huge Anubias, all coming out of one giant pot. And I put it outside for a summer and it melted.
Bugger.
Well, it was an experiment. I was thinking of piecing it up and taking it to the fish auction, but that didn't happen. So
living it in.
I take it in the actual lake itself, there's no plant life other than algae. Is that the case, or is there?
Oh no, there's lots of different kinds of plants there.
Right.
There's a vallisneria or sagittaria. Some of it grows short, some of it grows tall.
Mm-hmm.
There's the odd floating plant, nasty stuff that comes from South America.
Duckweed.
No, not duckweed.
That was my first thought too. Nasty stuff has to be duckweed.
Water hyacinth. I see the odd water hyacinth floating there, but I never see where it's a problem. But they have some other weeds there off the one motel we stayed at, and I don't know. This is, they didn't want anybody on their beach. They didn't want anybody swimming on their beach in front of their beach. So the security were kicking them out of there. And it's nice. They had a huge weed bed there, and the property was 500 or 700 meters long along the beach. So it was relatively untouched. It was kind of nice to see. There's fish. There's definitely fish that would prefer that habitat. I just can't think of offhand which ones it was, but I've photographed a few, and we don't get into weedy bays much because that's not our thing. Weedy bays are more, I don't know. Whereas the bottom's maybe more dirty or muddy, and that's where crocodiles go. So we don't go those. Try to stay away from those crocky areas.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a fair reason.
They're not as nasty as the saltwater crocs in Australia, but because the natives they're not supposed to kill them, but they do. I mean, what do you do if they're killing the kids in the village? They'll take them out. I went to Malawi the first time in 1999. The guy that guards the camp over there at Chofu had a great big croc skin up there drying. Then I come back and I was checking out Stewart's website, and they went. The natives they found a croc nest and they dug it up and they eat the eggs. So, but he had got snared this great big croc. There's a spot over on Chofu where you have to walk across the swampy area, and it's built up. You don't get wet, and it's a nice dry path, but you got water on both sides yet, and it goes into a swamp in the back. So you got to keep your eyes open in there. And the village is right on the other side of that, right on the edge. So what do? They snared that crocodile because it was getting pretty big. It was probably a good 3 meters without the head on it. So it was the size where it would start hunting people. So they snared it and got rid of it. But yeah, interesting. Right at Chofu, there's a rock pile out front. I don't know, 75 meters from shore, and we're coming in to at that spot. We pushed the boat nose right up into the sand on shore and then throw at the anchor, and then they tie it off at the back. And on that rock, there was about a 3-foot croc. And I go, oh my! By the time I went and got my camera, it was gone and into the water. And I'm sitting on shore with my long lens, and I got a couple of pictures floating around the rock. But after that, we never seen him again. It's mostly because there's been no people there for a long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So. I have seen the odd croc and hippo in the lake, but we don't usually dive in those areas. That's for sure.
Yeah, hippos are pretty aggressive, aren't they? Right up there as far as aggression goes. Yeah,
but they're generally staying in shallow water where we're not going to dive, in muddy streams, in the river mouths. What happens is the river mouth. The sediment comes out and it drops, and it comes out and drops over a lot of years. And what it does is you get this spot that it shoots out into the water, and it's got mud banks, maybe about 200 yards. And what it does is it makes a bay on one side and a bay on the other side. So, and that's usually where you see the hippos, just on the other side in the bays there. Usually on the side where there's no people. I've seen them there a couple of times, and down in the south, Mapandi Island. I had on my itinerary. I like to dive at Mapandi Island, and we got there, and I said to the boys, "Those rocks are moving." And sure enough, there's a pod of hippos in there. I know there's maybe 6 or 8. They come up and they go back down. I said, "Well, get closer for a picture," but the boys didn't even want to take the boat close to even take a picture. Yeah. But that's a really different spot, probably good for hippos, because the peninsula that comes out there's nothing on it. Nobody's built nothing on it, obviously, because the hippos are around. And it comes out from the shoreline, I don't know, several hundred yards, and it's like a great big blob of sand, and it's got some greenery on it, some shrubs and what have you. Then it comes into a nice sandy beach. Oh, it's beautiful. You like to stay there and sun and surf and whatever, snorkel all day. It's beautiful white sand. And it comes to a nice point and it goes underwater. And Mapandi Island's only about 50 yards away. So that's where they are. Yeah. Wow. So they'll stay in the water during the day, and at night they'll come out and they can feed on the vegetation. That's when you usually see them. Seen them on Stewart's property. The security guard, he stays well away from shore. So how come you're standing out here? Oh, he points down to the water. Hippo. That's about all he could say in English, but we got the point. And the next door, besides Stewart, there's a spot called the Wheelhouse. And I've been there, and they had a big hungry hippo out on shore the one year when we were there. And I thought, it gets kind of unnerving to walk out in chest deep water and it's murky and to get to the boat sometimes. It's anchored off the end of the jetty. And I go, yeah, I don't know. Get out of the water, but whatever. I mean, it can't be reckless. And say, there's no crocs here. Oh, there's no hippos here. Yeah, even along Senga Bay, once it hits like 5:30 at night and the sun's going down, they right in the room it says we don't advise you swimming after 5 o'clock. And there's some of the university students are out there swimming lengths up and down the beach. I said, hey, come on, should get out of the water at this time of night.
It's interesting because
I haven't seen hippos proper there, but I know they're down around the point in Leopard Bay. Seen them down there as well, and the natives know. I move up to the south of Stewart's, and there's what we call the old cannery. They used to catch fish and can them there, and the South Africans, they have the old cannery, and they park their fishing boats in the old cannery, and then they have a big tractor, and they come up and they launch them on the beach. And there's the hippos. They come up in the evening, and they get in beside the T-post in there, and they're scratching themselves on the T-post, right? But all the natives, all the kids, they're not even close to the wet sand. They're 20, 30 feet back on the beach. They don't get close to the water. They know this. One thing they know is they don't fiddle around with hippos over there. I'm not sure how many deaths occur in Malawi, but I think annually in Africa, I think there's like 500 deaths a year accredited to hippos. So
it's interesting to speak to a lot of people.
I just go take lots of I just go and take lots of it.
We've had a question from the floor. Jen would like to know, she's curious to know what the most interesting interspecies behavior that you've observed while diving in Lake Malawi.
Well, I've seen a few. Bulborni picking parasites off of other fish. Even with that big Jimmy Durante nose there, it's that inferior nose. They'll turn themselves upside down and they'll pick fish lice off another fish. That was I seen that once or twice. And then give me credit. I did some video on some fish at Tumby Island West, and Cyanochromis fryeri acting like an mbuna, like it's feeding to get closer and closer to the Tenniolatus fry before they take a swipe at them and eat them. It's an interesting feeding behavior by Cyanochromis fryeri. Yeah, so I mean, there's a few. I mean, there's Livingstone, playing dead in the sand. Pete got a nice shot of one. We were over at Tumby Island East, and the mulm on the bottom was, 6 inches, 8 inches deep, and it dove into the mulm and just come up just where you could barely see him. You see his eyes and his nose, and just waiting for Fry to come along. And Livingstone, I can take, 4-inch Livingstone eye will eat a 2-inch juvenile.
Wow!
I filmed that one time. Wow, I'm just trying to think. I mentioned it earlier. Not polystigma. Anyways, the Linnae with their long, skinny nose, they get that nose on the top of the rock like this, waiting for a fry to come over the top and just boom. And they use that long snout so that they can get down below the line of sight. And they do that very well. I mean, there's lots of things that happen in the lake there. There's more than Africans there. There's only one fish that I can. Well, there's probably some of the other ones, but there's only one or two that don't mouth breed. I forget what it's the new name of the tilapia rendeli. I've got pictures of them spawning in spawning pits. And there's some of the other different tilapias that I don't believe they mouth breed. Then there's some that do mouth breed. But I mean, everywhere you turn, if you have to have the mind to look for this stuff. I mean, even the first time when you're there, they say, "Oh, that's that fish," and did you see them down there? And they get, I don't know if I did or not. Well, this is what it looked like. And I just go, "Oh yeah, I've seen lots of them. Is that what they are?" It doesn't look like the picture in the book.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had a lot. The boys in the boat brought up a friggin' Cupatochromis borlei in the boat over at Taiwan Reef. Anybody want to guess what this is? They've got cichlid guys on a boat, and nobody wanted to guess. Either they didn't want to look stupid or whatever. And then by the time I got, and then Ad, he spoiled. He says Cupatochromis borlei. Like, how do you miss that one? Oh, you know, the one in the book, it shows a nice red fish, long ventral fins. Yeah, but that's from Kidango and that southeastern arm. They're all like that down there. They're not that super red. They're just reddish on the sides. So, you know, it's interesting. So you have to have an eye for it. There's only one guy that I had on a trip. He was phenomenal the first time he was there. He was a university student. I think back then they had the third edition. He had it with him, and it was just new out. And I don't know if he studied the thing or whatever. And he said, "Oh, did you see that down there?" "Yeah, I seen it down there. What about?" And he said, this, and this, and this. Wow, you're pretty good. Because even when I was there the first time, I'm looking at these fish and I go, "What is that?" And then somebody else, they'll say, "Well, what is that? What is that? And then somebody else will be able to answer their question because it just didn't look like the picture in the book. You know, I got about 21 pictures in Ad's latest book, and then I sent him a message. I'm surprised you used that old picture of that Cupatochromis in your book. I sent you the pictures specifically for you to look at them so that you can update that picture." And about 6 months later, he says, "Oh, I should have put that. You should use your picture in my book." Because I went to that spot specifically so I could shoot that fish for him. So that was kind of funny. I says,
Yeah.
"Well, maybe if you do another edition." And he says, "Oh, I don't think I'll ever do another edition," but he will eventually. He'll have to. But not every fish in the lake is in one of those books. You got to get the last 2 books. You know, because I was looking for something. I said, "Where the hell's that?" It's, "Well, that's not in book 5. That's in book 4 or whatever." Okay, whatever. I went and looked in the other book. You know, I answering questions online for people or whatever. Sometimes I got to reference this stuff. You know.
Is there much natural migration between, or have you noticed much natural migration in fish species? Like, you've been catching them at this point for so long, and all of a sudden you've got them X amount of kilometers or miles away at a different point that's unexpected, or are they kind of very regional and don't move too much?
I think most of the fish are going to stay in their own specific area. However, the Utaka group are more open water, and they might travel around a little bit more. I've been certainly at spots diving where you couldn't see the water for fish. It was just thousands and thousands and thousands of fish. And I just took a couple of pictures, and all you see is like the silver flashback of all these fish, but it's, you know, top to bottom of the screen, left to right. Those fish, they must migrate. And certainly, I think some of the fish that you can't find anymore. We found it once or twice, like Copatochromis firecrest. I think they go to deeper water, but they come back to spawn like salmon or trout. They come back to the same area to breed. I think that happens a lot. Although they did find a firecrest in the north recently, in the last year or so, but it's not quite the same as what we found at Gome Rock years ago. But and every once in a while, you think the fish is gone, and I take pictures and Ed says, "Oh, I haven't seen that fish up here in like 25 years." Sometimes they just pop up out of nowhere. Oh, did you see this? I said, I seen some, but they were too far away and they were too silvery. Stuff like that, like a chawari. There's a gold flavor of Copatochromis. I just can't think of the damn name. But anyways, or what it goes by. But he asked me if I'd seen it. And I said, I'm not sure if I did or not because it was too far away. But it's always, every trip is different. Every trip is great. I used to get super excited when I'm going, and I have everything packed by now to go on this year's trip. But I don't really get excited. I make a couple of trips to the drugstore. Oh, I forgot this. I forgot that. I'm going to get new Band-Aids. You got to get tooth drops. You're getting old. I don't want to have any problems with the toothache or whatever while I'm gone. And just, I don't get as excited to go. But when I'm there, I'm having a great time. And I always, well, Mike's great. I said, well, I got 4 kids. I got 3 boys, and when I go away, I look after me. I don't have to worry about the kids or nothing else. It's just me and where do you want to go to dive today, or where do you want to go to dive today? It's great. That's what makes it nice. I like being away from the kids a little bit, away from the fish. Don't worry about nothing. If something happens, I'm not there. I'll worry about it when I get home.
You can't control what you can't control.
Yeah, that's
so when
right.
you go there, Larry, how long do you intend to go for? Like, what's the average kind of length of time you would go there for?
I like to go early, so we start our dive safari this year on September the 2nd. But I get there I leave on the 27th. I get there on the 28th. So I store my stuff there. So it takes me a day or so to get my camera gear all together to set up the way I want it. And my dive gear out of the dive gear box, I put that in a hockey bag because it's going to be wet for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I get things organized. And then we try to get, if the weather's really nice and it's calm, where we stay at this great spot called Cool Runnings. It's like an oasis in the middle of a dry period over there. Namalenji is 2 kilometers offshore. So we go visit the Red Empress every year. There's years that I skip going out with the guys because I had my bad knee and whatever. But, I went the last time I was there. That's kind of a pre-dive. David, that runs Red Zebra, he's pretty good. We go over, get tanks and weights. Away we go. We get one of the fishermen to take us out for half a day. So we go, we get a dive in there, and then on another day we'll do a land safari, which is on the other side of Salima. As you're coming from the airport into Salima, there's a place everybody can have safari. They don't have any elephants, but they do have giraffes and a lot of the different antelope, having lots of monkeys and birds and stuff. So it's interesting. For half a day, we don't usually leave till about 2 p.m. It's dark at 6:30, so we only go up for about 4 hours in the evening because the animals come up for the water. So we do that at Cool Runnings from Wednesday, and we get Red Zebra Lodge. They'll come over and they'll pick us up, take us over. We'll go on the water for 13 days, and then we'll come back, and that's it. Then I usually stay for a few more days afterwards to sort all my stuff out, make sure my dive gear is all dried up before I put it in the box, and hop on a plane, come home. Cool. For me, it's I'll get on the plane on Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the morning. I'll get into Malawi the next day at about 12:40 plus 6 hours.
Yeah.
So it's about 36 hours before I get there from the time I leave.
Wow.
It's not on the flight, but I think the flight's about 13 and a half or 14 hours to Addis Ababa. And I think it's 5 or 6 hours from there down to the long way. And it's about an hour and a half to the lake from there. But yeah, everybody's great there. You know, hey, can you pick us up at the airport? Yeah, no problem. You know, we pay the lady to come get us, and take us to her place. She's very hospitable. You know, the meals are great over there at her place. Anyways, it was, I don't know, it's a good time. You know, we had steak dinner for about $10.
Sounds like heaven.
Yeah, it is.
Dinners, no kids, swimming with fish, and good weather.
You're only saying that because your daughter's just moved out.
Yeah.
I'm actually.
I haven't had one person.
I need to watch what I'm saying.
Yeah, I haven't had one complaint from anybody that's gone. You know, I think Pete, one year, he says, no, I'm just going to go for the safari. So he showed up on the Sunday, and then we would leave on a Monday. And he always regretted that. He says, because the next year he went and he says, oh, right, I missed all this. You know, so because, you know, you're going to get there on a Wednesday. We might get a dive, we might not. Depends if the wind's blowing. If the wind's blowing, the water around Lake or Namalinji Island is fairly shallow. I think on the far side, you might find a spot that's 20 feet deep, but most of it's 10, 12 feet. And if the wind gets in there and stirs it up, man, oh man, it's like getting in your fish tank and stirring up all that gravel. You can't see. So you have to let it settle down for a couple of days. Ideally, I've been there on days where it's been beautiful because it hadn't had any wind in 4 or 5 days. And in the one year we went there, we went to land safari first, and then we were going to go dive at the island, and it was friggin' snowing, not snowing, blowing like crazy. And it's, well, nope, we ain't going diving today. So the idea is you get there, if the water's flat and smooth, dive right away. And then because you can go any day to the land part of the safari. So, and then we'll go over to the Red Zebra on, as I said, on the Monday. And the guys like to take a walk around, look at all the fish fats and the fish. At this time of the year, there's not too much in because they're just starting to get things together to go out. You know, which works out good. They're coming out of winter. Stuart used to keep things going through all winter over there, but finally they started, you know, the last of the fish went out in May, early June, and then they didn't start collecting again until September. So there'll be nothing probably in the fish. I expect nothing in the fish house when I get there. There might be a few fish here and there outside in the ponds. But when we finish the safari, they might have had a load or two of fish come through the fish house by then. So,
is there catching seasons like more predominant to catch at certain times of the year?
Well, they're not keeping a lot of fish at the farm because the water temperature gets cold. They might get down to, you know, if you have cloudy days and it's windy and it's rainy or whatever, you might get down to used to get down cold enough where the fish could get ick. Because every time when Stuart wanted something, and I used to take two boxes over there, he always wanted ick medication. What do you eat ick? Does it get that cold in the winter? Well, yeah, it gets down to about 68, the outside temperature, but the fish inside the places, they're not heated, so yeah, the vats and that will get down maybe 65. So I guess he was having a problem with that, but it's eliminated. You know, June, July, August. You know, over here in Canada, we're not bringing in fish from there. I mean, that's our slow period. That's summer here, right? Summer here. There's not business in the pet shop. It goes down a little bit for the summer. People are going on holidays. You don't buy fish and go on holidays. You buy them when you're done, right? So,
yeah. We've had a comment from Don. He said, "Tell Larry I got some spiked apple shine for the Gunza. I have no idea what that reference is, but you obviously do."
Yeah, Don and I have good friends for a long time, and that's OCA's Ohio Cichlid Extravaganza, and that's with the Ohio Cichlid Association. It's a decent convention because, and I like the fact that it's the same place, same motel every year. It's got other motels around. We've had to, on occasional years, had to expand the people out to these other motels, but it's like the American Cichlid Association convention. It's great. They get the top names. The speakers are varied. I've spoken there once, and you get to meet the people every year. And of course, I've known Don long before that. I used to go down there for that, but Don, he's a character. We're good friends.
Good.
I'll be looking forward to that, Don.
There's a couple of specific fish species that I would like to ask you about because
Sure.
I particularly like them. One of them is the Nimbochromis venustus, the giraffe cichlid.
Oh, the venustus, yeah.
Yeah, what can you tell me about them? Have you seen them in the wild?
Yeah.
Just fill me with information.
Well, I don't see a lot of them in the wild. I've seen them at Luwala Reef. I've seen them at Namalangi Island in over the grass beds, but all small stuff. I've never seen large ones. Apparently, there was a spot close to Namalangi Island where Stewart used to collect them and ship them, but he said the problem was they were all females. How can that be? And I see that in a lot of species like the Nimbochromis, not Nimbochromis, sorry, the polystigma and livingstone eye. You see one male, and then you see like 100 females swimming by. You don't usually see multi males at once. Sometimes you do, but mostly it's just a single male. Ed had a lovely shot there from Chemby village. There is the shoreline there at Cape McClear. Most people call it Cape McClear. And they had this old rusty barrel with a Nimbochromis in there. And it was a beautiful shot because he was all bright blue. And so the same thing happens with the venustus. I got a load of venustus here, small ones that were collected because I asked for them. Okay, can you collect these for me? Yeah. And I got them in my tanks here. And I sold them all. I didn't keep any for myself. That was stupid. But anyways, I've had that happen a lot. I can't keep everything. And I mean, there was in the little ones there was males, but to collect and ship these fish out, all he seemed to collect was females. So what do you do? Very pretty fish. They do get aggressive. Can be killers in your tank. I've never grown any out. I've had them, but I haven't bred them. I haven't had them here at any reasonable size either. I've had all the rest of the groups. I've had polystigma and livingstone. I've had the whatever. I've had them all, but that's one that's evaded me. And I think I brought them in back then because I was there and I seen them and I asked them to be collected and they collected them for me. I don't know if they do them as a favor or whatever, but whatever. And then they come in. I sold them. I should have kept them. Oh, you got that? Can I? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think they're an absolutely spectacular fish, especially the males. They're like shooting from one end of a long tank to another. They're just like a tracer bullet. They're just so rapidly and I really like those fish personally.
Some of those fish will readily crossbreed as well. Nimbochromis. I've had it polystigma crossed with a compressor, and I opened her mouth. Didn't think nothing happened. I put the babies in a little 5-gallon tank to raise up. I had them for about a month, and I go, that don't look right. These guys got spots on them. I said, they friggin' things are crossed with a with a compressor. So, I just fed them off. But after a month, you should be able to tell. And yeah, I'll be darned. Well, we'll have to move those fish around.
What about the Pseudotropheus crabro?
Crabro?
Yeah.
I've kept it here occasionally, but I ended up with all males. And the males grow nice. They're big, they're black, they're aggressive. And usually when you see them, I mean, I have video. When I have my old little point and shoot Sony camera underwater, I put my fingers out like this, and the crabro will come right up and pick your fingers, because it looks like dead fish underwater. Your hands are all super white, right? And wrinkly, and they come and pick your fingers. But the males, they grow big, they get nasty. In the wild, they pick at the big catfish to pick parasites off. So whenever you see the catfish nest, there's usually a crabro not too far away. You'll see some Hepatochromis fry over the top of them, where the catfish should chase most of the other fish away because they got fry below them. So, but yeah, you usually see them around where there's catfish, and they're pretty forward. I mean, you hold out your hand like that, and you're doing this, and they come up and eat off your fingers. That's pretty bold, The other fish do that, but yeah, in an aquarium, man, they can get aggressive. When I was fishery manager up here at one of the big stores, I had a guy, and I said, yeah, I need, he bring me in stuff that's this size, 2 inches. Bring him in, how many you got? I got hundreds. I said, well, give me a call in 2 or 3 weeks, and I'll take another 40, and then we'll try to do that at least once a month for you, clean them out. Some people have great luck with them. They breed like rabbits. I don't know what, maybe I didn't have enough in the tank. Whenever I used to buy fish to breed a specific species that I like, I thought 6 was good enough. No, then I thought 10 was good. And I usually buy 12 to 14 fish,
Right.
And then what happens? You say, oh, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it is. But in the case of peacocks, you're going to get a lot of males. So then you can sell the males off. By the time you sell the males off, it's paid for the colony, and then they're going to start to breed. You're all set. So it's up to you. But that's what I found. You buy minimum 12 to get started, because I find that usually at least 60% or more are males. So you can always sell the male. No, there's nobody that wants color that won't take a male, right?
Correct. Yeah. So in the wild, where are you seeing the crabros? Are they quite shallow, or are they a little bit deeper down?
Those are deep. Yeah, they're reasonably deep, because the catfish are down there. That's where they are. They're down. It depends where you are, but I'm thinking of Nakantanga Island. It goes down fairly quick. The catfish are 70 feet plus. So that's one of those. That's one of those cat, or one of those in Buna that is going to be deep.
Yeah.
The catfish. Then again, the catfish aren't where the peacocks are, or the other haps are. The roving predators, they'll be down there with the catfish, but they just swim by in groups. Bother the catfish.
By the way you're kind of explaining it, almost sounds like if you're just sort of imagining like a cliff, different tiers with different animals, and they've got their own kind of water zone that they sort of associate them for the best part.
Like a full board. Some of these things are like a bar of soap, a big bar of soap with fins on them. And they'll be up in the top 12, 15 feet. They're right up there. They'll be in close to shore. If it's rocky, they'll be in 3 feet of water. I mean, you can easily cast net those and catch them if you want to. But
Did you say more than the blue dolphins?
The blue dolphins, they're going to be deeper. They're going to be out. They're going to be out over the sand, and actually, you can call them into you. You just take your fin and dig it into the sand and just stir it in the sand, And the biggest male, I called him in. I'm looking around. I don't see nothing, nowhere. 360 degrees around. It's all sand. There's one big rock not far away. And I dug my fin in and swooshed it in the sand. And this, I don't know, 8-inch male, maybe it might have been bigger. He came swimming at me like I was dinner. Same thing with Finatics. And in a lot of spots where you go, you're down on the bottom, and you're on your knees and you're taking pictures, and you turn around and all these fish are on your fins because you're stirring up the sand. Right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these fish, they're digging down. Teniolethrinops, they're diving down in the sand 4 or 5 inches in the sand. I mean, they're big fish, so they go down 4, 5, 6 inches in the sand easily. So yeah, some of these, like the blue dolphins, just say you can call them into you. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because I kind of got, let's see if this works. You have to think of these things, right? Like sticking your fingers out and doing this for the crab roll. Let's see if it works.
I did only have 2 fish that I wanted to talk about, but I do also like blue dolphins. So what can you tell me about them, please, in the wild?
Which ones?
Continuing with the blue dolphins with the moray. What else can you sort of tell me about them?
Oh, I don't know. Pick a species.
Blue dolphin.
The blue dolphin, the moray.
Well, that's what I said. You can call them with your fins. Just put your fin in this, and
what's the water parameters like for a fish like that in the wild compared to the parameters that we're taught to kind of maintain in the aquarium? Are they exactly the same, or do you find a discrepancy?
Were you talking about temperature? Sorry.
The water parameters.
Oh, water parameters. Yeah, we spoke about that earlier.
Come on, John.
I'll go over real quick. The pH in the water there is 8.3 or 8.5. Depends if you get it in close to shore. It's going to be lower, or no. I forget how that works. Anyways, the waves breaking on shore release the carbon dioxide. So yeah, it'd probably be lower. Or when they go to get the water to pack their fish, they take it from offshore, which is about 8.5. The water runs, the hardness runs around 250 microsiemens. So 8.3 to 8.5, depending on the dry season, wet season, if the lake's high or low, probably around 250 microsiemens. I asked for the hardness, and Stuart started to say the hardness. Then he quoted it in microsiemens. So, anyways, that was back in 1999.
Right.
Wanted to get you either you had to take the test kits with you, or you just ask. And he's pretty scientific. I mean, every time you went over there, you had a whole box of stuff just for Stuart. It's amazing, microscopes and fishing lures and all sorts of crazy stuff. You come over here for a while and stay with one of my other friends there for a couple of weeks because he was doing a talk in the States. Then he did one up here, and he bought another suitcase and filled it full of stuff. And I mean, it must have weighed 80 or 90 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
You have to buy it. You're here. You have to buy all the stuff that's not available in Africa, right? So that's what he used to do when he came over. It's just
we've had a question from one of our watchers.
Yeah.
Where is the one place you suggest someone to go who is just a hobbyist but wants to experience wild collection or observation at least once in their life?
Well, I mean, you can go almost anywhere in Malawi and find a lake shore and find fish, but you better. The best way to see the fish is by far scuba diving. Can you snorkel and see the fish? Yeah, you're going to see a lot of fish, and probably the best spot is at what they call Cape Maclear, which is a Chembe village. Cape Maclear is actually out around the one point of Domway Island, but everybody calls Chembe village Cape Maclear, whatever. You can go to these spots. They have You can rent scuba equipment. You can take your scuba license. You can go to Encata Bay. You can do a tour with Red Zebra with me, or somebody that you may or may not know. There are other guys. I have friends from Sweden that do it, from Germany that do it, Norway. But you can go almost anywhere. I mean, you can hop around the country. There's certain spots where you don't really want to dive at certain times of the day, because Chimby Beach is one of the hot spots of Lake Malawi for tourists. But you can catch bilharzia, which is a parasite. It's in the water there. So
Really?
you have to know when to dive and when not to dive. You can dive early in the morning, at sunrise till about 9 o'clock. Then you get out of the water. But most people don't know these things. There's people swimming in that water all day long. The women are right there with their little kids peeing in the water and washing their clothes and their dishes. So, that's a problem. But there are lots of good spots. As I say, Encata Bay is good. There's lots of great spots to stay almost anywhere you go in Malawi. Where else? Candy Beach Resort is another good spot. It's got an island that you can swim out to. I think it's about 1 kilometer offshore, but you can walk just about all the way out there. Probably the last 100 yards, 200 yards, you might have to swim. That's a beautiful spot. And it's not a small island. You can probably swim around that island in 5 or 10 minutes. But when you're down in the South Chimby Village area, it's nice because the park is right there. All the park islands that are supposed to be protected, all right there. You get a lot of, there's variable skills in diving some of these areas. Some of them are deep. Some of them might have a little bit of current. But generally, the tour guides are right there, right along the shoreline, and they'll take you out to these spots. You rent the equipment, they'll take you out. So, yeah, there's lots of places you can go when you're there. There's lots of things to see and do in Malawi. Not only, I'm surprised that people go there for whatever reason that don't go there for fish. I said, you didn't come here for the fish? No, why? What's so special about this lake? Then I have to tell them. They went to at least a few beers, right? To tell them that's the story, right? Oh, and the nice thing now is it's pretty good over there. You get cold beer almost everywhere. Before you had to refrigerate it yourself or put the case of pop or Coke or Sprite beer right in the water with the sand over it and let it sit there for an hour or so. Yeah.
Are you still importing fish, or have you stopped doing that?
I haven't done, as I say, in like about 4 years. It's just it's a water quality issue here that I haven't rectified yet. So,
yeah, okay, cool. I was going to ask you a bunch of questions about that.
Sure, go ahead.
Cool. What's the process of importing cichlids from Malawi to where you are?
Well, first, you got to have enough space, because you can't just do 1 or 2 boxes. There's a minimum requirements. I'm not sure if he's up to yet. 10 or 12 boxes of fish. You're into a decent money for the fish. They're into more money for the freight. The freight's major charge. I used to spend like big money. Then we changed the flights around, and we got it on a better flight, which come in earlier in the day, and the fish were in the box a lot less time. And I have them home here at 10 o'clock in the morning rather than 10 o'clock at night. So, it depends where you're from. You have to get a business license, or you got to pay tax or whatever. I have my importing license, so I can import them here. Here, there's no regulations. Obviously, down in Australia, they seem to be the worst with the regulations.
We're pretty bad here in New Zealand as well.
Oh, well, that's because you're next door.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Don't hold that against us.
So, anyways, you go. You get the invoice. I get the invoice from David. It says, this is what you owe. I go to the bank. I send them a wire transfer. What day we send out the fish, and this is the day you're sending it out. Okay, it'll be here at whatever time. You gotta have a big enough vehicle to go and take 12, 14, 18, 50 boxes of fish, whatever you order, back to your warehouse. And then, it takes time. The last order, the last order I did down here was just me doing it myself. My kid, he's upstairs twiddling his thumbs. Hey, you gonna come help me? So anyways, I come up at midnight. What are you doing down there? I said, still putting fish away. 10 o'clock in the morning. Because, hey, it takes a long time to put fish away. Many hands make light work. So, but other times, I get the three boys down here helping me. And we get everything put away in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And my oldest boy, he mops the floor when we're done, and the other one does the trash. And I got a fire pit out back, and any dead fish and newspaper and all that stuff, it goes out there, and then we'll have a bonfire the next night. So, yeah, it's not big. I mean, when it comes into Canada, I'll just, there's a guy at customs standing there with his hand out, right? You owe money. I think that's in most places, right?
So they're not inspecting for diseases or anything like that. You don't have
no.
Actually, your possession, they're yours. That's it.
Yeah, there's no problem with diseases on wild fish. You might get a little anchor worm in the dorsal fin. You might get a little bit of a fish lice in between the ventrals on the fish. No problems. And back then, I just go along. I put most of the fish went into 50-gallon aquariums. I drop in 4 clout, swoosh it around with a net, back draft the net, and they go into the tank. I never had any problems. I think there's only one time I had a problem. They used to bag to make your freight pay for itself. You had to kind of get as many fish in that are survivable on the way. But they have spaces in the box. They put 7 bags in the box, so there's just that space where the 7th one are in between the bags, and they say, "Hey, bag 6 or 8 briar eye single bags, and put them in between the bags. It helps keep the bags upright so that they're not all laying over and crisscrossing, knocking around." And or these other fish, I say single bag them, put in some single bags. It just helps fill up the box. Sometimes the bags are supposed to come in there like this, like this. It's water leaking. So there's little things you learn along the way. So, and you lose fish. Yeah, I did. I think I only had one perfect shipment ever. All the years that I've been doing it, I've been doing it for close to 20 years. It's only one perfect shipment that ever came in. And, and what happens is the other end, it's at Stewart's end, they had some strange bacterial infection that was running around the fish room. And I've seen it there on the fish. I said, yeah, you need to get rid of that fish. Anybody else gets that, get out of the tank because it's contagious. And I don't know. I've had other guys in the States ship their fish down to the Florida labs, and they identified it and how to kill it. But the treatment's just as bad. You got to treat the fish, and after the 3rd day, you have to do a 90% water change to get the medicine out of the water, or it becomes toxic to the fish.
Wow.
Yeah. I forget. I've got a bottle of it here. I can't remember what the name of it is, and I wonder why this medicine was supposed to be good for this, and then I treated the fish, and after 2 or 3 days, they die. And I find out that, well, you can put in a quarter dose and let it go for longer, but if you do the proper dose, 2 days, then you got to change the water. So, but up here in Canada, you can't get any medicines anymore. They've pulled that all off the shelves. So it's pretty tough. That's another reason why I brought fish in.
What's your process for acclimatizing wild caught fish to your waters?
Okay, I bring and open up a box. I have an idea where they're going to go. And I get the boys, oh, that's that. Put that in that tank, that tank, that tank. And I get, 7 bags in the box. I'll get 2 boxes open and then I'll get 2 less from the start. What I do is I take I got lots of buckets. I take the water and I dump probably about 90% of the water out, and I give it a little squirt of ammo lock, and then I take 2 or 3 good drinks out of the tank and fold the bag over the front. Then I go next. So that's why we only got about 2 boxes going at a time. And then we go once you went to the end of the 7 or 14 or whatever we were doing, and come back, give them another drink. And then I don't ever put any of that water in my tank. I drain it all through the net, and I turn the bag upside down, and I drain all the water I can out of the bag. The fish are still in the plastic bag. I go to the tank and drop them all in. There's no sense dropping a fish in the net. You're just going to scrape their mouths, their nose, their fins get caught in the net. So leave them in the plastic bag. There's no sense putting them in a net, cause more stress. I turn the bag upside down over the tank. You're not getting any more water out of the bag, as most of it's gone in the bucket. Certainly, if you use netting them out of the bucket into the tank, you're going to get more water doing that going into the tank. And I just boom upside down right into the tank. And sometimes I've done that a couple of times. I think I mentioned before that sometimes you get a little bit of shock, and the fish he sits there for a little bit, and all of a sudden he takes off, and then, if he keeps doing that, he's going to hit the end of the tank. So I take those fish. I just got a big 5-gallon bag, and I'll net them out of the tank, put them back in the bag, put some ammo lock in the bag, throw the bag on the chair for another hour, put him back in the tank, and he's fine. I never had a fish that out of shock. And certainly there's some fish, the bag comes in, there's a dead fish in it, and the bag's murky and dirty and whatever. I just turn the bag upside down, let the dead fish go in the bucket, and I just dump the fish right in the tank. No acclimatization at all, because hey, it's right at this point, it's sink or swim. It's better off going in the tank. He's got a better chance there. And I never had any problems with that. If the fish is going to die because it was oxygen starved, because the fish died in the bag, he's got a better chance in the tank. And I add a little ammo lock. If he's sitting there, if he's still breathing, and the ammo lock is in there, you can maybe toxify him. But it's better when you put like a little squirt in the bag. It's a more concentrated area. But I put a little ammo lock in the tank for those types of fish. And yes, usually it works. I save maybe, 19 out of 20 fish doing that.
So the exporting process from Malawi end, do you think that's something that could be improved, or do you think they're pretty much at the top of their game just now?
They gotta run it by 2 inspectors over there. One is that looks after the money end, and the other one looks after the fish end. So they get a vet certification for export, which we need at this end. And it's good. We send stuff out via Ethiopian Air. He drops it off probably 2 hours before the plane's going to take off, and I'm at the airport. I would be at the airport just as long before I jump on the plane. I don't get the fish shipped with me, but by the time they bag it and they get it to the airport, it's on the plane and gets here, it's probably about 36 hours in the bag. The other place would have been another 12 hours on top of that. So I kept saying, do this. I have a flying on Ethiopian Air. So they get home a lot faster. The fish would be in the bag a lot less. And it worked out. The fish shipments from that route have been much better. So anyways.
If you were to give some advice to someone who's never had Malawi cichlids before, they've just seen it on the internet, these real pretty coloured looking fish, what would it be for them to be successful? How would you approach that for them?
Well, I think anybody that's starting off with African cichlids, especially usually it's a new tank and people want Africans, start off with about one 2-inch fish for every 10 gallons of water, because if you go over that amount and you're starting to feed them, twice a day because you want to put growth on them, you're going to have a water quality problem. So, in a new 75-gallon tank, I put half a dozen 2-inch fish, preferably not rock dwellers, in Mbuna. Because the Mbuna are going to tear each other up at that size with that much space.
Mm.
But you start off with a half a dozen peacocks of whatever flavor you like. That's probably the best way to go. And as the tank starts to mature, I mean, there's things that you can add the tank to shortcut that now. But just take it slow to start. And peacocks, they're a lot less aggressive than the Mbuna or the haps. You have to. When you go in a pet shop, they got an African cichlid book on a shelf somewhere. Flip a few pages, see what you like. You got a cell phone in your hand. Google it. I mean, some of the pictures aren't really accurate on Google, or they're overexposed or over edited, but at least it'll give you an idea what the fish look like. Hey, what are these brown little fish? Well, Google the name. People want to pay big bucks for adult fish. It's not the way to do it. You're better off with small fish. I got guys come in here and, they want to buy wild fish because they want to breed them and make a lot of money. Hey, each to their own. But, sometimes you have to buy extra females, and then male kills the females. There's certain ways of doing it. I usually, when they ask questions, I'm easier with answering questions than I am trying to solve it from the start. But basically, do a little bit of investigation on which fish you like, which fish you can get in the shop, because everything you like might not be available, and kind of plan out the tank in advance. Just start off with 6 of this or 6 of that. Let it go a few weeks. Add some biological media to the tank. There's several different brand stuff. And up here we've got Fritz Zyme or Fritz 7. Hagen makes, I forget what it's called now. They make their brand of biological additive, and just take it slow to start. People jump in and then they get discouraged. My fish are dying. They want to clean the tank, clean the filter. That's the worst thing you could do. We're trying to set up the biology in the filter rather than, washing it out under a chlorinated tap. Jeez. But
Patience is a new fish keeper's best friend, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lack of patience in new fish keepers. They're all excited to get going.
And we've all been there.
Guys start new tanks and they put Fritz 7 in the tank. Oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread, blah, 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 blah. I put the fish in. Hey, they're your own fish you're doing. You've been breeding fish for a while, but I just wanted to tell you how good this stuff was. Yeah, well, but he probably added $35 or $40 worth of Fritz 7. You're better off put the new filter on the old tank, let it run
for a few weeks.
That over, that's the best way. Or taking an old filter, or taking the filter off an old tank and putting it on the new tank, then you can top the fish up right away. There's all sorts of ways to shortcut. But that's a whole nother episode for that sort of stuff.
Certainly is. Yeah.
Yeah. There's all sorts of people want to know how they can shortcut.
Yep.
We haven't touched too much on peacocks. We've briefly discussed them. What's your feeling around them? Where are they sort of found in the wild? And a big one is, for me at least, how are they different from one species to another? Obviously, the males get slightly different colorations, but are there other tells that you can tell behavior-wise between them?
Well, yeah,
there's a lot there.
In Malawi, it seems like every pile of rocks has got peacocks on it. Certain areas have different colors. Even certain areas where we go, there are, like, we call it Flavson peacock, the yellow ones with black dorsal, tipped with white, blue face. And even we go from spot to spot around these areas. And even in some areas, you go to one area and there's that flavocin peacock, and it looks nice. But you go to this other area here, and it's awesome. So not only do you have, there's a bit of color variation in a different pile of rocks, and they're in the boat. The boat doesn't travel that fast. You could probably hit all these spots in an hour. You could get there within an hour, and but it's just in some spots, the yellow's brighter, the face is brighter, the fish grows a little bit bigger. You go across to Tanzania, and that fish is relatively small, but on the Malawi side, it's a lot larger. And I'm just thinking of when we dive at, and they're there, and it's kind of pale. Actually, at Candy Island, they had that. They call it the pale flavocin peacock, because that's what Stuart called it, pale flavocin, because the color was a lot paler. But you get up at Osisia, man, there's a few spots up there where they're just awesome. One little spot that I said, well, what about Chichinga Reef? And I don't have that on my GPS. So I had to ask the fishermen. Here, there, fishermen, they have a GPS up here. They can go in the middle of nowhere and be within 10 feet where they want to be. Exactly.
It's in their blood, isn't it? It's in their blood. The whole.
Wow, they're amazing. We went to the one reef there, and they seen us getting ready with our scuba gear, and we're gonna set anchor, and the guys are going, and then we go a little bit more, and they're going, and then we go a little bit more, and they go, stop, put the anchor down. Oh man, it's a beautiful spot. Haven't been able to find that actual spot close. There's a huge rock there. But anyways, getting back to peacocks. There's everywhere you go, there's slightly different. The Chilamba peacock, it has a little bit of red in its tail. We go on the other side of Chilamba, going farther north, it's a little bit redder. But then when you go out to Ngara, it's a beautiful red tail, and the red starts to flush up on the sides as well. And there are no orange Ngara peacocks versus red. They're all the same color. It's the different cameras that these people are using, or they're processed differently. There's no orange Ngara or a red Ngara. They're all the same. I run into that. I answered that for years. They're all the same.
When you say like from one pile of rocks to another, are we talking like a couple of foot away? Are we talking 20 foot away? What's the kind of territories on?
You have two piles of rocks or two rocky areas, and they're separated by a sand beach.
You're right.
There'll always be red tails over here, and there'll be bicolors over here, because they won't travel across the sand.
Right.
They're
just fear of predation.
They're stuck to the rocks. Yeah. Same thing when you're out diving in some of these areas. It'd be a big slab rock, with a little sand around the edges where the rock's just maybe poking through a little bit. You don't find peacocks out there. They're still in close to the rocks. There's a few peacocks that are out over the sand, and I finally got a picture of them 3 or 4 years ago. One male chasing the female. And I got some dandy shots of that. It's too bad. Another time I can maybe get 8 or 10 slides here, and I can put them up, because I think I can do that. There's a display thing here, and I can show you some neat pictures. But yeah, like you'll have, and then like in the southeast arm, the Stuart Granite. We go through the narrows between Damwai Island and the mainland. That's called the Ilala Gap. And that's the last spot where you see Stuart Granite peacocks. As soon as you start going south from there, it's all Jacob Freiberg guy. You won't see another one. So there's certain areas where one species stops and another one starts. But even in those spots, you start to see some other different peacocks, species that are different. Like it's not unnatural to see like 2 or 3 different peacocks in one area, but you don't see them together usually.
Yeah.
There's a strain down in the southeast arm. I forget. It's still. I don't think they got that. It's a yellow collar. It's not like a totally different from a bicolor. They don't grow very big, but in amongst there, you'll have the jakes, and you have a lemon jake in that in around there too. And I knew the yellow jake was down there, but it wasn't until my other friend David Goddard, he's from the UK. He was swimming in front of me, and when he swam over this pile of rocks, it must have shocked the jake. He kept swimming out, and I went like this, and I got two or three nice shots of him, and I knew that they were there. I think it's called Mammalea down there, but that fish is down in the south, and it's up around Tanzania as well. So, anyways, but yeah, every pile of rocks, there's always peacocks or something. We get to Candy Island, it's a Canadiense, and then you get over to Luwala Reef, it's Nealande. 2 peacocks exactly the same. One's got a white blaze and one's got a yellow blaze.
The female peacocks are notoriously hard to tell apart. Do you have any advice on and telling the difference between different varieties of the female peacocks?
Jacob, the only ones, if you have 2 types of peacocks and they accidentally get mixed, you may be able to look at the adults and tell from the anal fin which one's which. The ones I can say for sure are the Banshee, usually have yellow in their anal fin, and the Otter Point Jacob Freiberg, females have orange anal fins. That's it. The rest, if you give me a bag of females that were wild, good luck. Good luck. Yeah. So if the exporter isn't, if he says, well, no, we're supposed to ship Larry, 20 girls and he's only got 18, but he got extra of this and he throws them in the bag, that's a problem because you can't tell.
Yeah. So how do you work on keeping lines sort of clean and pure when it comes to that?
One species,
if you're just getting females.
One species of peacock per 50-gallon tank, or I'll have them mixed up in a 50 or in 135 or 75-gallon tank. Yeah, and I'll just put other fish in there with them, some Capatochromis or whatever else. And
I was more like, do you keep them only catch point when you bring them in, and like someone's got a Jacob Freiberger, you don't mix that group together, like you're very.
I don't mix nothing. I got
You weren't introducing your group with them.
Yeah, whatever males and females, I'll got it say right on the bag, and they'll go into one tank.
Yeah,
and if I put them in a 135-gallon tank, because I double ordered it, because sometimes when they got it, I like, oh, that's good, I'll double order them because they sell good or whatever, right? We would all do that. And I never. The bag says Banshee on it, and there's Banshee males and Banshee females. They go into one tank, and I generally, especially young ones, I don't put peacocks even side by side, because inevitably I got a little 10-gallon square 10-gallon grow out tank here, and I looked the other day, and the tanks are probably about that far apart, 2 inches apart, and I look in, and I go, I got some Stuart Grantine from Shidunga Rocks here, and there's a Capatochromis that's jumped from one tank into the next. And if it was a peacock, it's if that grows up and you can't tell the females apart, and you start breeding that, what are you going to end up with? Well, you're shot down right away, right?
So that'll be why, it's just dawned on me, that'll be why you introduce new males for bloodlines as opposed to changing out the females. You change out the males for that reason.
Yeah, about every every third or fourth generation, I would change out a male, you know.
Yeah.
And I have enough people around me that, hey, you still got any of those fish? Yeah, I do. I'm looking for a nice male. I want to change mine out because, you know, mine have gone down 3. His have probably gone down 2 or 3. And yeah, then I just get a male from somebody else. It's still like they're breeding in the wild, but you just don't want things too diluted if you get it, you know. And that's something that these beginners, they don't have to worry about that, you know. Find, if you got a quality pet shop, go there. If you know guys that are into this or they're helping you out, then go there, you know. I have people that come to me looking for fish. I don't have them. Hey, but my other buddy that breeds fish, he has them, you know. And we do that a lot up here. We got, I don't know,
I suppose that's the
6 or 10
benefits of
guys.
being able to, that's the benefits of being able to join either an online community or a local club. That way you're getting that
Yeah.
support.
Well, I mean,
that network of support.
I mean, after 60 years in the hobby, you make a couple of friends, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You hope.
Well, yeah, you hope.
Yeah.
Do you find bags coming over with a mixture of fish a problem, or is your supplier?
No, but mistakes get made, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you got these fishermen. They're fishermen,
Mhm.
and they usually have a leader who knows what fish is what. They've got a pretty good idea, but if you got 2 peacocks or 3 peacocks in an area, and the guy goes down and he hits the wrong pile of females, you know, is it possible you get a couple of females that are the wrong that got mixed in there, or in the barrels? You know, they transport them by barrels back to wherever they got to go, and then they bag them up to send them down to the fish house. Did you know that fish did what? Oh, it fell off in another barrel. Well, how do you pull that one out? You know, is there an accidents happen? You know,
So these
I
barrels,
have some Malawi Care aquilonium here because I've seen it on the list. I got to order that. Boom. I tried to order it again, but something happened. I think I got shafted a couple of times. There's a few times I've seen them on the list. Oh, we don't have them available. I said, well, whatever. I reserved fish in a fish house, and they got sold to one of my friends in Norway because he had them, and I asked them to be collected. I put my name on in the fish house, and suddenly, where are these fish? And the other guys posted online with Norway. Oh yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, goof ups happen, right? So
yeah.
Just part and parcel of it.
I was gonna say about the aquilonium. I was talking to one of the fish farmers in Florida, and he said, you know, you never had those fish before. Well, I had them when I bred them, but I sent the wrong females. So you get them, you condition them, you breed them, you grow them out for. A lot of these fish are just like young maturing males, right? So you got to go on maybe 3 months, 4 months before they start breeding, and then they breed, and then you got all these little fry, and of course you can't tell one peacock from the other, even at that size. And then they get to be 12, 14 months old, and oh, that doesn't look right. So yeah, that happened with him on the Malawi Care aquilonium. So.
What do you find the most important element for bringing coloration out on haps and peacocks, but in Malawis in general? Is it like a water condition thing or a feeding thing, or what's the best way of doing that?
Water changes are always important. You'll see your fish brighten up after a water change. If you let the water quality go, sometimes you might have to do 2 or maybe 3 water changes in succession, which I usually find that happens in September, October after people have done their holidays here in Canada, right? So yeah, don't do every day. Do it a day, then skip a day until the readings get down on your nitrate level. But yeah, good quality food, you know, like tetracolor granules were great. I used them for a lot of years. And people come in here and they say, oh, nice fish, you know. and it wouldn't overdo them. It would just bring them up to what they looked like in the lake. It wasn't overdone. I was feeding the Extreme. Hey, you know, when it was sold as NLS back in the day, I didn't notice any difference, but I didn't see my fish lose color. But whatever. Water change and a good quality food. If you're feeding cheap flake or something like that, it just don't cut it. They gotta have the vitamins and nutrients.
You've just said something then to do with NLS and Extreme, which I'm not aware of what was going on then. Can you explain that a little bit, please?
Oh, why I'm not selling it no more? Or...
No. You. I think you were hinting at Extreme was sold as NLS or vice versa. Like I said earlier, okay. We've only just got Extreme, and NLS isn't all that common over here as well.
It's my understanding that one of the guys that worked for Extreme wanted to sell it commercially, right? He wanted to sell it to everybody. This is great food, blah, blah, blah. And left the company and probably ordered it from the same manufacturer and was selling it as NLS. And I bought NLS, and then, you know, when I heard that, I thought, oh yeah, I bought some NLS at the store just to give it a try. But man, it really looked like Extreme. So but apparently, I'm not sure what happened, but he's changed up the formula, so it's not like Extreme anymore. Which I don't know. I just haven't done the NLS thing since I did that little tester bottle with it back when I worked for the pet shop. But yeah, it was the same thing there for a while, and now I don't know what happened, but he's changed up the formula, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. I don't know. I don't feed NLS.
Yeah, I had no idea any of that had happened. Like I said, we've only just got Extreme into the country earlier this year, maybe a little bit late last year, and NLS hasn't been readily available here. But you were basically trying to import it yourself up until about a year ago as well. So that's probably all before it managed to make its way to little old New Zealand.
Well, after I started selling it and finding out more and more about Extreme, you know, I know a lot of people in the fish trades up here, and you know, around the world, I know quite a few people as well. But then I did kick in these little whispers in my ear, or you're reading stuff in articles or whatever, or on the forums. Back when you used to have forums, when you had reliable information, right? And the nice thing about a forum back then is you could go back and reference it. But yeah, you pick up this and that and everything, and that's what I understand about, you know, how Extreme come onto the market, and NLS. It was a little bit before. Actually, I think NLS came up long before Extreme. But I mean, Extreme was made for on the fish farm in Florida, right? And then the guy said, well, you know, we should be selling this stuff, and left that company and started selling that stuff. So, I mean, Extreme isn't the manufacturer, and neither is NLS. That there's only a few spots in the U.S. where they actually make fish food, right? These people buy the food and they rebrand it with their name and sell it.
Oh yeah,
Fine with that. I was fine with that. I can go to the manufacturer and do the same thing. I'm getting too old for all this crap, so I haven't done it yet. So moving a little bit slower than I should. Yeah.
What are you currently feeding? What's your feeding regime?
I ordered enough Extreme back in the day when I was doing it that I've still got some for sale, and I've got my own personal stock as well.
Yeah.
So I'm still feeding Extreme. I like it.
Yep.
I've probably got enough to last me in, you know, into next year anyway, some point.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that pretty much brings us to the end of our questions, I think.
The end?
I think we've kind of covered base on most of the things, unless there's something specifically you want to know, John?
No, I'm good.
Cool. Okay.
I'll just
So
leave
we
with
like
stories and we'll dive in.
we like to end our Finatics Friday Coffee Dates with a segment we call the Quick School of Six, which is 6 very short answer questions. They're not meant to put you on the spot, but every now and then the odd one does. So if you were doing a coin toss, would you call heads or tails?
Heads.
Are you a tea or a coffee drinker?
Coffee.
Are we alone in the universe?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, cool. If you could have a meal with someone alive or dead from any point in time, fictional or real, who would it be?
Probably my late wife.
That's a fair answer. Paper, scissors, rocks. What's your first call?
Rocks.
Rocks, cool. And what is your unicorn fish, one you'd like to either keep, spawn, photograph, swim with in the wild? What's that one fish that seems to be eluding you a little bit?
Oh. None of them are really eluding me. I have my favorites, which would be autopharynx lithobates from Zimbabwe rock. That's probably one of the nicest fish in the lake, and I don't think anybody would disagree with me there.
Cool. And my last question, which makes it 7, not 6 now, is where can people find you if they want to know more about you or learn from you or what you've done or be involved in what you do?
Well, I do have a website that has been upkept lately, mostly because I just got this new computer in the last few weeks. The other one's so slow, it's impossible to do many changes. But I have a website, Malawi Cichlid Imports.ca. And you should be able to find that fairly easy. And I got pictures and videos and what have you. And I guess, as I said, I got to update it. I think I got pictures on there up to like 2012 or 14. And the last 6 or 7 years, I haven't done much. There's some cool videos there. Some of them I link some of the videos to some sites, and now those sites are gone. So there's some blanks in it, which I need to repost. I mean, I got lots of space. I can do it. I'm not really familiar with WordPress so much as the older programs I used to do, but I kind of fumbling away at it with my son-in-law, he's the IT guy. Yeah. I have a cichlid group on Facebook. It's called Malawi Cichlid Imports Group. And they can contact me there.
Cool.
If you see a link or see my face, then you might be able to friend me on Facebook. I'm on Facebook several times a day because there's somebody asking a question or want to know.
Directing you to go on a live stream.
Yeah, that too. I posted that, and I had a few people there.
So a quick question just before you go, like
Sure.
when you import, do you only import large quantities for your fish, for your own fish store, or can somebody say, look, I'm looking for a group of red tops, can you get me them, and then you'll do that on request? Or
Well, I asked for a list. He'll send me a list. I says, that list is kind of short. When's the next order coming in off the lake? The guys are catching the fish out there, but they haven't been sent down. I said, well, this is what I want off of this list, but send me the new list as soon as you get it. So sometimes you got to send me 2 or 3 lists. So in your case, if you see it, buy it, because I got some beautiful red empress in here that I had them collect because I didn't see it on the list in a long time, and they come in there, gorgeous people come in. I said, well, this is much for a pair, or I have babies, and I sold hundreds of youngs from that group, and so guys were coming to buy 20, 30. I'll buy them all, and I think I only took about 16 or 17 to the pet shop because I was leaving to go to Africa the one year. And then I sold them off. You can, if I know what you want and it's there, I would order it for you. And
Okay.
I don't have anybody put any money down or do any of that stuff. If I bring them in, I bring them in. If they have them on the list, I'll bring them in. It's no problem. But, you know, there's, what's there, 800 or 900 species in the lake. They just don't, you know, and of course, Tanzania is out. They don't collect from there because that's out of their jurisdiction. So my supplier, he only collects from Malawi. So there's some Tanzanian fish that are immediate, that are nice ones that are immediate right off, like your star sapphires, which are very rare in the wild now. They've been over collected, but yeah, if you got somebody that's bringing in fish, you have to let them know, because I'm going through the list, and somebody says, "Oh, I wish you would have brought in some of these." Well, I wish you would have told me because they were on the list. Like when I brought my Gertzai in, I'd never seen them on the list before. Never seen them on the list. When I brought in the Aquiloniums, I had never seen them on the list before. I have some fish here that are like that now. I'd never seen them on the list before. I ordered them once. They come in. They've survived and arrived, and they've been breeding and thriving in my basement. But the guys have a tendency who are collecting, and they get sent out. And we used to be with stewards say, "This is where you collect. You spend your week or 10 days here, and then you go to a different spot for a week or 10 days. Then you go to a different spot." So you rotate the guys around. It might be 2 months or 3 months before they get back to that same spot, which is plenty of time for the fish to breed and produce young, or let the other ones grow up and breed, right? I'm not sure what's done now, but, you know, I put my request in for fish. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't get it. You know, I reserve fish in the fish house that I've seen that I asked to be ordered, and I still didn't get them. Just the way it goes.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you have somebody there, I know Ricky used to bring him into the UK, and I mean, he was good for a long time, and then I don't know when he fell off the cliff.
I know I've got a guy, Dean. He brings them in from Asia, but not the African cichlid. So he's just. I was just curious if you did kind of special requests, or if you just advertise the list every week or every month.
Yeah, I get my list, and when I get the fish in, I quarantine everything for at least 2 weeks, and then I used to just post the fish. I tell one person, he tell 20 people. When are the fish coming? When are the fish coming? You know, so I mean, fish come in. I quarantine them for 2 weeks. Anybody that wanted fish, I have them come first and pick theirs up, so they're out of the way. Because you start letting these other guys in and looking at fish, oh, I want that. Well, no, sorry, that's already sold. So I get the people that wanted the fish in first. And if they don't come when I ask, hey, you need to be here by Saturday because I got other people coming in, you know, they take your chance. But that's just the way it is. Yeah, the 2 weeks, most of my fish were gone.
Yeah.
You know, cool. If I wasn't working when I was doing that, I would have probably done an order every 6 weeks to 2 months from there. But, you know, working fish and doing fish at home and hobbies fish, man, that's a lot of fish.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Well,
thanks very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's much appreciated. And thank you, everybody who has been in the chat today. It's been a fantastic stream. And it's great to get a little bit of perspective on Malawi cichlids. We get a lot of Amazonian fish keepers and hobbyists, but very seldom do we speak to Malawi fish keepers and stuff. So thank you very much. It's been really informative.
Yes. Thanks for having me on, Cam. Nice meeting you, John.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Have a good one, team. Happy fish
You
keeping
too.
and catch you later.